I once believed I had the perfect marriage with Jessica, my college sweetheart. We built what I thought was an unshakable bond, shared dreams of a future with children, and had the unwavering support of my loving family. Then I discovered her affair. What followed was unimaginable. A false assault accusation that turned my world upside down and caused my entire family to abandon me overnight. Nobody believed me. I lost everything, but I refused to let her lies define the rest of my life. Hey everyone. Before I continue this story, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more stories about finding strength when everyone turns against you. I met Jessica Adams 7 years ago at my best friend Mark's wedding in Portland. I was 32, established in my career as a software engineer at a growing tech firm, and ready to find someone to build a life with after several failed short-term relationships. That spring evening changed everything. The fairy lights strung across the garden reception cast a warm glow as I spotted her laughing with the bride across the dance floor. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and something about her genuine smile drew me in immediately. "You must be Claude," she said, when I worked up the courage to introduce myself. "Sarah has told me all about you." That night we talked until the venue staff began packing up chairs around us. Jessica worked in marketing for a national retail chain, loved classic films, and shared my passion for hiking the Pacific Northwest trails. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and I found myself captivated by her quick wit and infectious enthusiasm for life. We exchanged numbers, and by the next morning I had already texted her to ask for a proper date. Our first dinner together stretched to nearly 4 hours as we discovered countless shared interests and complementary differences. Within 3 months, we were practically inseparable. Jessica fit seamlessly into my social circle, charming everyone she met, especially my parents, Robert and Linda, and my younger sister Amy. "She is absolutely perfect for you," my mother declared after meeting Jessica for Sunday dinner. "I have never seen you this happy, Claude." My father, typically reserved with my girlfriends, welcomed Jessica with unprecedented warmth. He even invited her to join our traditional family fishing trips to the Oregon coast, something no previous girlfriend had experienced. Amy, 6 years my junior and protective of our close bond, initially seemed hesitant, but soon fell under Jessica's spell after she helped organize a surprise birthday celebration for her. After 14 months of dating, I proposed during a sunset hike on Mount Hood. The diamond ring had burned a hole in my pocket for weeks, as I planned every detail. When she said yes, tears streaming down her face, I felt certain I had found my forever partner. We set a date for the following summer, eager to begin our life together. Our wedding was everything we had dreamed of, an elegant ceremony at a historic downtown hotel with 150 guests. Jessica looked breathtaking in her fitted lace gown, and I remember feeling overwhelmed with joy as we exchanged vows. The reception lasted until nearly 2 in the morning, with my father giving an uncharacteristically emotional toast that left few dry eyes in the room. The first year of marriage brought nothing but happiness. We purchased a charming craftsman-style home in a quiet neighborhood, spent weekends exploring local wineries or hiking new trails, and established traditions like Sunday morning breakfasts on our porch. Jessica thrived in her career, earning a significant promotion 6 months after our wedding, while I took on more responsibility managing a new development team at my company. We often discussed our future children. She wanted 2. I hoped for 3, and began setting aside savings for family expenses. We even converted the smallest bedroom into a potential nursery, though we agreed to wait another year before trying to conceive. Looking back, the warning signs were there, but love blinded me to their significance. Around our 2nd anniversary, Jessica started working later hours, often arriving home after 8 or 9 at night, exhausted and distant. She claimed a major new client required extra attention, and I believed her without question. My own work had intensified, with frequent trips to our Seattle office keeping me away from home 2 or 3 days each month. New names began appearing in her conversations, colleagues and clients I never met despite our previously intertwined social circles. When I suggested hosting a dinner for her new work friends, she deflected, saying they were just professional connections and not worth the effort. Then came the phone behavior. Jessica began taking calls in another room, her voice lowered to a whisper. She added a passcode to her phone when she had always left it unlocked. When I casually mentioned this change, she accused me of being controlling and invaded her privacy. Wanting to respect her boundaries, I backed off, convincing myself these were normal evolutions in a maturing relationship. Our financial discussions grew tense as well. Jessica began making expensive purchases without consultation. Designer clothes, a new laptop, weekend getaways with girlfriends I had never met. When I raised concerns about our budget, particularly as we were saving for a family, she dismissed me as being too frugal and constraining. "We make good money, Claude. Live a little," she would say, ending the conversation before it began. These changes coincided with a reduction in our physical intimacy. Excuses about headaches or exhaustion became routine. I tried romantic gestures, surprise date nights, thoughtful gifts, but nothing rekindled our earlier passion. Still, I attributed these issues to normal relationship ebbs and flows, never suspecting the devastating truth that lurked beneath the surface. The truth revealed itself 9 months ago on a rainy Tuesday in February. My trip to Chicago had concluded a day early, when our client unexpectedly rescheduled the final meeting. Rather than informing Jessica, I decided to surprise her with an early return, stopping to pick up takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant. I pulled into our driveway around 7:30 in the evening and noticed an unfamiliar black Audi parked across the street. Our neighborhood rarely had street parking, as most homes had ample driveways, so the vehicle stood out immediately. A strange sensation settled in my stomach as I gathered the food bags and approached our front door. The house was unusually quiet when I entered, though lights glowed from our upstairs bedroom. I moved silently up the staircase, hearing murmured voices growing clearer with each step. Outside our bedroom door, the voices crystallized into distinct conversation. Jessica laughing in a way I had not heard in months, followed by a deep male voice responding with intimate familiarity. "We need to figure out the timing," I heard Jessica say. "He has another Seattle trip next month for at least 3 days." The responding male voice spoke with casual confidence. "Perfect. We should plan that weekend getaway to Vancouver we talked about." My hands trembled as I pushed open the bedroom door. The scene burned into my memory. Jessica sitting on our bed in silk loungewear, wineglass in hand, while a tall man with dark hair stood by our bedroom window, shirt unbuttoned. The nightstand held an open bottle of wine, a rare vintage I had been saving for our anniversary. "Claude," Jessica gasped, spilling wine across our duvet. "You were supposed to be in Chicago until tomorrow." The man, I would later learn his name was James, grabbed his jacket and moved toward the door. I blocked his path, fury and shock rendering me momentarily speechless. He was younger than me by several years, physically fit with an expensive watch glinting on his wrist. "You must be the husband," he said with astonishing casualness. "Look, this is awkward, but these things happen." Something in his dismissive tone snapped my restraint. "Get out of my house," I growled, stepping aside just enough for him to pass. "Now." James slipped past me with a glance toward Jessica that held clear familiarity. I heard the front door close moments later, followed by the sound of the Audi starting outside. Alone with Jessica, I struggled to form coherent thoughts as adrenaline coursed through me. How long, I finally managed. "Claude, this is not what you think." She began scrambling to her feet. "James is just a colleague. We were discussing a project and—" "Stop lying." I interrupted, my voice eerily calm despite the hurricane raging inside. "I heard you both. I saw you. How long has this been happening?" Jessica tried several more denials, each more transparent than the last. She blamed my frequent absences, claimed loneliness suggested I had emotionally neglected her. Eventually cornered by undeniable evidence, she admitted the affair had been ongoing for nearly 7 months. "But it does not mean anything," she insisted, suddenly tearful. "It is just physical." "James means nothing to me." "Nothing," I echoed incredulously. "You were planning a weekend trip to Vancouver with him using my work schedule." Her tears vanished, replaced by defiance. "Fine. Yes, I have been seeing James. But you have not exactly been the perfect husband. Your work always comes first. You never listen when I talk about my day. You are so focused on saving for some hypothetical future that you forget to live in the present." The conversation deteriorated from there. Despite my shock and anger, I suggested marriage counseling, a last desperate attempt to salvage what we had built. Jessica agreed half-heartedly, perhaps to mitigate her guilt or simply to avoid immediate consequences. We attended 3 sessions over the next 2 weeks, but her participation was superficial at best. Then came the devastating second betrayal. After our 3rd counseling appointment, I borrowed Jessica's tablet to look up a restaurant address, only to discover ongoing text messages with James. Far from ending the affair, as she had promised, she was merely being more careful. Messages outlined their continued meetings during my workday and detailed Jessica's growing frustration with the counseling charade, as she called it. That night I confronted her again. She responded with cold indifference, admitting she had no intention of ending things with James. "I think I love him, Claude," she said without remorse. "I cannot just turn that off because we are in counseling." I moved into our spare bedroom that night, too emotionally exhausted to argue further. Over the next several weeks, our home became a frozen battlefield of tense silences and brief practical exchanges. I consulted a divorce attorney, discreetly gathering advice while trying to process my shattered reality. During this period, I also discovered financial discrepancies that deepened my sense of betrayal. Bank statements revealed Jessica had been transferring funds from our joint savings account to a personal account I knew nothing about, almost $20,000 over 6 months. Our vacation fund, kitchen renovation budget, and a portion of what we had saved for future children had quietly disappeared. When questioned, Jessica claimed she was protecting her financial future given the uncertainty of our marriage. What happened next still seems unreal, like watching someone else's nightmare unfold. I later pieced together that Jessica had been secretly consulting with a divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics. Bank records would eventually reveal she had paid this attorney a substantial retainer using our joint funds. Text messages discovered during legal proceedings showed Jessica and James discussing strategies to secure a favorable divorce settlement, including ways to portray me as unstable or dangerous. The setup occurred on a Friday evening, 6 weeks after I discovered the affair. I arrived home from work to find several large purchases on our credit card statement, designer furniture, delivered to an address I did not recognize. When I asked Jessica about these charges, she pretended ignorance, then anger when I persisted. "Are you setting up a love nest with James using our money?" I asked, my patience finally exhausted after weeks of deception. The argument escalated as Jessica continued denying the obvious evidence. Our voices grew louder, and I noticed our neighbors, the Thompsons, glancing over from their driveway. Conscious of creating a scene, I grabbed my keys and wallet. "I need air," I said firmly. "We will finish this discussion when I get back." I drove aimlessly for nearly 2 hours, eventually stopping at a coffee shop to clear my head. I remember checking my phone, 3 missed calls from Jessica, but no voicemails or texts. Assuming she had calmed down and wanted to talk reasonably, I headed home around 9:30 that evening. The police cruisers in our driveway were visible from half a block away. 2 officers stood on our porch, while a female officer spoke with Jessica in the doorway. As I approached uncertainly, I noticed Jessica's tear-stained face, and most shockingly, a darkening bruise around her eye and a cut on her lip. "Claude Porter," one officer called as I exited my car. "We need to speak with you, sir." The next moments passed in confused fragments, Jessica sobbing as she described how I had allegedly struck her multiple times during our argument, the officers explaining I was being arrested for domestic assault, my futile protests of innocence as handcuffs tightened around my wrists, neighbors watching from their driveways as I was placed in the police car, Jessica's parents arriving as I was driven away, her father glaring at me with pure hatred. The processing at the county jail remains a humiliating blur, fingerprinting mugshots, personal items confiscated, the indignity of a body search. I spent that night in a holding cell, sleepless and reeling, trying to understand how my life had imploded so completely. My single phone call went to my parents, desperately hoping they could post bail and provide support during what was clearly a horrifying misunderstanding. Instead, my father answered with a coldness I had never before heard in his voice. "Jessica called us from the hospital," he said stiffly. "How could you, Claude? We did not raise you to be this kind of man." "Dad, please listen," I begged. "She is lying. I never touched her. I left the house for hours before the police came." "The police have evidence, Claude. Her injuries, the neighbors heard your shouting. Stop denying what you did. And get help." His voice broke slightly before hardening again. "Do not contact us or your sister until you have gotten professional help for your anger issues." The line went dead before I could respond, leaving me truly alone for the first time in my life. The next morning, I appeared before a judge who set bail at $15,000. With no family support, I had to contact a bail bondsman, using most of my available credit to secure release. Additional conditions included a restraining order, barring me from our home or any contact with Jessica. I left court with nowhere to go, the clothes I had worn to work the previous day, and the crushing knowledge that everyone I loved believed me capable of domestic violence. Within 24 hours, Jessica had methodically destroyed my reputation beyond my family. She posted a carefully worded social media statement about surviving domestic violence without naming me directly, though everyone in our circles knew exactly who she meant. My workplace received anonymous calls about my violent behavior, prompting my supervisor to place me on administrative leave pending investigation. Friends sent shocked accusatory texts or simply stopped responding altogether. The final betrayal came the following week, when my parents called a family dinner at their home without me. Through Amy's reluctant text afterward, I learned Jessica had been invited her visible injuries, drawing sympathy and outrage. My father formally announced that until I admitted my actions and sought rehabilitation, I would not be welcome in family gatherings, holidays, or their home. My sister, torn but ultimately loyal to our parents, agreed to these terms. Even my extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins with whom I had shared holidays and milestones throughout my life, publicly supported Jessica with comments on her posts and offers of assistance. I had become a pariah overnight based entirely on fabricated allegations. The family that had been my foundation for 32 years disowned me, based on the skillfully crafted lies of a woman who had already betrayed me in the most intimate way possible. The following weeks became the darkest period of my life. Unable to return home, I moved between cheap motels, draining my personal savings as legal fees mounted. My once promising career hung by a thread, with human resources emails delicately suggesting I consider other opportunities. Each morning brought the disorienting realization that my carefully constructed life had vanished, replaced by isolation and uncertainty. Sleep became elusive, my nights filled with replaying events, searching for what I could have done differently, and imagining the conversations happening about me among people I had trusted. My appetite disappeared, and I lost 15 pounds in under a month. Everyday activities required monumental effort. Showering, changing clothes, even basic meal preparation felt overwhelming. One particularly bleak evening in a roadside motel room, with rain lashing against the windows, I found myself staring at the collection of over-the-counter sleep aids I had purchased, wondering if taking the entire bottle might provide permanent relief from the relentless pain. The thought of simply not existing anymore held momentary appeal. No more humiliation, no more fighting against impossible odds, no more betrayal. What stopped me was not fear or moral hesitation, but sudden white-hot anger. Jessica had already taken my marriage, my home, my reputation, and my family. I refused to let her take my future as well. Something hardened inside me that night, a determination that somehow, some way, the truth would emerge. I would not surrender to false accusations or allow her lies to define me. The next morning, I made two decisions that would ultimately save me. I contacted every defense attorney in the area until finding one who would meet for a free consultation, and I began meticulously documenting everything related to Jessica, our marriage, and the assault allegations. Teresa Ramirez, the attorney who finally agreed to meet me, did not offer instant belief or false comfort. Instead, she listened carefully to my story, asked pointed questions, and explained the difficult road ahead. "If what you are saying is true, Mr. Porter, there should be evidence to support your timeline," she said, studying me with experienced eyes. "Cell tower records for your phone security cameras from businesses you visited that evening, credit card transactions with timestamps. We need to build a provable alibi, and then examine the prosecution evidence for inconsistencies." Her retainer fee was substantial, $8,000 I did not have, but she accepted a payment plan after seeing my determination. That afternoon, I pawned my expensive watch and the guitar I had played since college to make the initial payment. For the first time since my arrest, I felt a flicker of hope. Under Teresa's guidance, we began methodically building my defense. My cell phone records confirmed my location, miles from our home at the time Jessica claimed the assault occurred. Security footage from the coffee shop showed me sitting alone working on my laptop during the exact time frame of the alleged incident. Credit card statements verified my purchase there, and the exact time. But the most damning evidence in my favor emerged unexpectedly. Our neighbors, the Thompsons, had installed a security camera covering their driveway and portion of the street, including a view of our front door. Initially reluctant to get involved, Mr. Thompson eventually agreed to review the footage with my attorney present. What the recording showed was explosive. Jessica completely uninjured watching me drive away after our argument. Then 40 minutes later, James arriving at our house, staying for over an hour, and leaving shortly before Jessica called the police. Most importantly, the footage showed Jessica with no visible injuries when she said goodbye to James at the door. Teresa moved quickly, presenting this evidence to the district attorney, along with sworn statements from baristas at the coffee shop and my complete alibi documentation. 3 weeks later, all charges against me were dismissed. The prosecutor, clearly uncomfortable with what appeared to be a false police report, declined to press charges against Jessica, something that still rankles me, though I understand the pragmatic reasoning behind that decision. With the criminal case dissolved, Teresa helped me file for divorce immediately, citing adultery and fraudulent behavior. We also began preparing a separate civil lawsuit against Jessica for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and financial damages. Discovery during the divorce proceedings uncovered even more shocking evidence of Jessica's deception. Text messages between her and James explicitly discussed setting Claude up and detailed how she would make herself look beaten up enough for photos before calling the police. They had planned everything, the argument, the timing, even which neighbors might overhear and serve as unwitting witnesses. One particularly chilling exchange had Jessica assuring James the plan would work because everyone always believes the woman in these situations. Financial discovery revealed Jessica had been systematically diverting funds from our accounts for over a year, totaling nearly $60,000, far more than I had initially discovered. She had also incurred substantial credit card debt in my name through authorized user cards I knew nothing about. The divorce proceedings moved surprisingly quickly once this evidence emerged. Jessica's attorney, seeing the overwhelming case against his client, advised her to settle rather than face a trial that would expose her actions publicly. The final agreement granted me our house, which Jessica had already vacated to move in with James' restoration of the stolen funds, and a clear division of remaining assets. I also received a settlement from our homeowner insurance policy after demonstrating Jessica had falsified her injury claims. The defamation lawsuit concluded similarly, with Jessica agreeing to a substantial settlement rather than facing a jury. As part of this agreement, she signed a sworn statement acknowledging the assault allegations were fabricated, a document I immediately forwarded to my family, my employer, and everyone who had shunned me based on her lies. She also deleted all social media posts referring to the false allegations and posted a brief attorney-crafted clarification that stopped short of a full apology but made clear the previous claims were withdrawn. Perhaps most satisfying was watching Jessica's carefully constructed new life crumble in the aftermath. James, who had enjoyed spending her stolen funds on luxury items and weekend getaways, disappeared shortly after the settlement depleted her resources. Her company, embarrassed by the public nature of the false accusations, transferred her to a smaller office in another state. Her own parents, initially my fiercest critics, stopped defending her actions and withdrew their emotional and financial support. Vindicated, but still deeply wounded by the entire experience, I made the decision to start fresh in Seattle. My company, now apologetic about their hasty judgment, offered a transfer to their headquarters with a promotion and salary increase as a gesture of goodwill. I accepted, though the relationship would never again feel entirely comfortable. I sold our Portland house too, filled with painful memories to remain, and purchased a modern apartment in a downtown Seattle high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. The clean lines and open spaces of the new place represented the psychological fresh start I desperately needed. Rebuilding my life became my singular focus. I established strict routines, early morning workouts, productive workdays focused on new project development, evening classes, and photography, a hobby I had abandoned during my marriage. Weekends were filled with hiking the nearby mountains or exploring the city, deliberately creating new positive associations to replace the painful memories. Finding a good therapist proved essential to my recovery. Dr. Marshall specialized in trauma and betrayal, providing tools to process my anger without allowing it to consume me. Through our weekly sessions, I learned to recognize how the experience had altered my trust framework and relationship patterns. Betrayal at this level changes your fundamental understanding of human relationships, she explained during one particularly insightful session. The goal is not to pretend it never happened, but to integrate the experience without letting it dictate your future connections. Gradually, I began forming new friendships carefully at first, then with increasing openness. My apartment building had a community rooftop garden where I met Daniel, an architect who shared my interest in photography. Through him, I joined a weekend hiking group, where I met several people who became core parts of my new social circle. None of them knew my history, initially allowing me the freedom to be defined by my present, rather than my painful past. 9 months after moving to Seattle, I met Allison during a charity run, organized by my company. Unlike my immediate attraction to Jessica, my connection with Allison built slowly and authentically. A pediatric nurse with a warm laugh and grounded perspective, she approached relationships with refreshing honesty. When I finally shared my past experiences after several months of dating, her response was compassionate without pity. "That experience is part of what shaped you," she said thoughtfully. "But it is not who you are." My career flourished in the new environment with a significant promotion 18 months after the transfer. Financial stability returned, and I began rebuilding my savings and investment portfolio. The legal settlements, while not erasing the emotional damage, provided resources to establish this new chapter without financial stress. Then, 2 years and 3 months after the false accusation that destroyed my previous life, my mother called unexpectedly one Sunday afternoon. "Claude," she began hesitantly, "I know we have no right to reach out after everything, but your father and I would like to talk with you if you are willing." The call lasted only 3 minutes, but it reopened a wound I thought had scarred over. My parents had seen Jessica at a community event with visible bruises and a black eye being comforted by their close friends. The immediate visual had triggered their protective instincts. When coupled with police involvement and Jessica's calculated manipulation of their emotions, they had made a devastating choice to believe the worst about their son without allowing for his defense. "We received your email with the legal documents months ago," my mother admitted. "We should have reached out immediately, but the shame was overwhelming." How do parents apologize for such a fundamental betrayal of trust? I ended the call, promising to consider their request for reconciliation, feeling a complex swirl of emotions, lingering anger, a small measure of satisfaction at their acknowledgement, and unexpected grief for the relationship that had been needlessly damaged. My sister Amy visited Seattle the following month, having reached out separately through a heartfelt email. Over dinner at my apartment, she broke down completely. I knew something felt wrong about her story, she confessed, tears streaming down her face. But everyone was so convinced, and the evidence seemed so clear. "I failed you as a sister, Claude. I should have at least heard your side." Extended family members began sending tentative messages on holidays. Cousins I had grown up with expressed regret at their rush to judgment. My Uncle Thomas, my father's brother, and once a mentor figure, wrote a particularly moving letter, acknowledging how groupthink had led an entire family to abandon one of their own, based on unverified allegations. Dr. Marshall helped me navigate these potential reconciliations, emphasizing that forgiveness did not necessitate immediate restoration of trust. Rebuilding these relationships, if you choose to do so, should happen at your pace, she advised. Each step forward should be intentional and protective of the life you have built. After considerable reflection, I agreed to meet my parents at a neutral location, a restaurant halfway between Seattle and Portland. The lunch was awkward, emotional, and ultimately cathartic. My father, a proudly stoic man, wept openly while apologizing. My mother brought photo albums from my childhood, perhaps as a subconscious reminder of the decades of love that preceded their devastating mistake. "We do not expect immediate forgiveness," my father said as the meal concluded. "We just want the chance to prove over time that we can be the parents you deserve." I established clear boundaries for our renewed relationship visits, would be infrequent. Initially, certain topics remained off limits, and they would need to respect the independence of my new life. They accepted these terms with humble gratitude for any path forward. The journey from complete betrayal to my current life has fundamentally changed how I view trust, family bonds, and personal resilience. The blind faith I once placed in others has been replaced by a more discerning trust that requires consistent evidence of character. I no longer seek external validation to measure my worth, having learned that even those closest to us can falter in their judgment. Perhaps the most valuable lesson emerged from the darkest moment that night in the motel room, when continuation seemed impossible. I discovered an internal strength I never knew existed, a resilience that could withstand complete abandonment and still find reasons to move forward. This knowledge serves as a foundation for everything I build now, secure in the understanding that while others may fail me, I will never again fail myself. Life continues to unfold in surprising ways. My relationship with Allison deepens monthly, built on honest communication and mutual respect. My career provides both financial security and creative fulfillment. My rebuilt relationship with my family, while forever altered, has found a new authenticity based on difficult truths rather than comfortable assumptions. I carry scars from my experience, certainly, but they have healed into markers of survival rather than open wounds of victimhood. So what would I tell someone facing similar devastation? Trust your truth, even when no one else does. Document everything. Find the right advocates. And remember that sometimes losing everything you thought mattered reveals what truly does. Have you ever been in a situation where everyone believed lies about you? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story helped you feel less alone in your struggles, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming betrayal and finding strength when it seems impossible. Thank you for listening, and remember, your darkest chapter can become the foundation of your greatest comeback.